Sorry. Doing too much. Let me drive a little bit. I'll pull over when I want to read this to you, and then we can just chit chat on my afternoon drive in to my office. If you noticed, hello Minister Joy, if you noticed, I had called this prescription morning, this detox morning, this soul session, I labeled it Unhappily Ever After. And I speak with a lot of single as well as married men and women. And perhaps a place of, I don't even want to call it contentment, because I think it's far worse than being content. What the Lord meant in being content is in a place of patience that is led by the Holy Spirit, the fruit of the Spirit, and a place of faith. And I don't believe that those individuals that I had just mentioned who are unhappily ever after are in a place of contentment that the Lord intended. To be content in all things, to know when to abase and when to abound. That's a contentment that talks about, hey, Dr. Clarence, that's a place of contentment that God talks about. It's a place of faith. Maybe you're stationed at the gate waiting for your something to happen, your ministry, your business, your relationship, your Boaz, whatever it is that you could be waiting for. We're all in a different place in life right now, but you're waiting for something. And he wants us to be content. Well, being content in the Lord means that your faith is activated, so you can be content in a station of waiting, in a place of waiting, in a place of expectancy. You know, at least when you're pregnant, you can get an approximate due date. Doesn't mean they're going to hit it on the head, but you can get an approximate due date. Most times when you're waiting in God or waiting on God, he wants us to be content in the station of waiting, which means content means to be, your peace is there, so you're not anxious, you're not doubting, you're not losing hope, and your faith is there. So you know that you're waiting. The expectancy is of what you are waiting for, but it just hasn't happened yet. The couples that I'm talking about are not in that place. They are in a place, there we go, hopelessness, where they are unhappily ever after. They have decided that I'm going to stay in this singleness the rest of my life because of a bad relationship. So now I've bought into or partnered with the thought that there are no good relationships, or there are those who stay in lackluster relationships, loveless relationships, burdensome relationships, because they've resigned to the fact that this is the best that I'm ever going to get. And then there are those who are unhappily ever after because they're really in a place where they've resigned to the fact that I've made this vow, I've made this commitment, and I'm going to stay where I am. And this is for single as well as married. But what I wanted to read to you today is I'm going to take us on a journey up until January. You know, every January, this is going to be the third year. Can I get any celebratory emojis on the screen? This is going to be our third year of 30 days in January of Soul Detox, impartation, information, education, revelation, enlightenment, all of those good things. And so we're celebrating. It's going to be 3 years. Talk about consistency. So relationships, sex, all these things are part of our human nature. And I want to help you do a self-evaluation to find out, have you settled in the situation that you're in, or are you content in the situation that you are in? So I'm going to provoke your thoughts in your mind over those 30 days. But for this morning, for this maybe 10, 20 minutes we got left to be on here, let me read something to you. I was trying to decide what I want my opening statement to be every night or every day when I do this. And then I picked out my closing statement. So I'm going to stick with what I did from the beginning. All right, y'all ready for me to read? Out of ashes, hope. And you got to say that with a weight. Out of ashes, ... hope. Because that gives room for thought, for patience, for faith to work. Hope. When I hear the stories that emerge from the sexual lives of women, and I sense the lack of self-respect, the blow to their dignity, The choices in men made out of a fog of pain and loss. A deep note of grief resounds within me. I find myself waiting to protest. You are meant to be loved and valued and cherished for the rest of your life by a man whose face lights up when he sees you. Now, this is for men as well, but I'm retelling the story of a book, Sex and the Soul. Whether a woman marries or not, strength and respect are her God-given birthright. You can find the door out of destructive relationships with men and recover the parts of your heart and soul you may feel lost. It's entirely possible. That's the part I want to get through to you today. It is entirely possible for you to find a man whose face lights up when he sees you. It is entirely possible for you to reconstruct a relationship, reactivate in your current marriage a love that when your husband sees you or you see your husband, your face lights up when you see each other. And for the single women, it is worth you waiting that long to find out that there is a man out there whose face will light up when he sees you. And if you're in anything different, you are reducing your self-respect. You are accepting the blow to your dignity because the choices that you have made or are currently going to make, if you're still single, is going to be a choice made out of your pain and your loss, out of your grief, out of your loneliness, and out of what you have accepted is possible or not possible for you. So this is the journey we're going to be on. Let me just read a little bit more. As women, we are designed for deep and lasting attachment. As someone's daughter, mother, aunt, sister, friend, or wife, no matter what we achieve or accomplish, our lives are empty without relationships of duration and depth. We were made for relationships. Fundamentally, it is this life of relationship that the sexual insanity of our days so threaten. Relationships, especially those between men and women, are inherently hard to sustain. They require every part of you. If you're in a marriage and you say, this is draining, it's taking too much out of me, well, let me help you. 50% of that is correct, because relationships require every part of you. So you may have your job, your career, your education, your ministry, your children ahead of your marriage, and that is going to make marriage harder on you, because inherently relationships of all kinds are hard to sustain. So if you've got things before it, you're probably emotionally, mentally, and physically drained or working towards that at some point. Because relationships require every part of you, mind and body and soul, intact. Before you get into a relationship, your mind, body, and soul needs to be intact. How many of us can say we married with our mind and body and soul separate? A piece of our soul was left in this relationship. Piece of my mind is working maybe in a career or education. My body is all over the place because I have not gone back to pick up body parts that I've left in different beds or, in different assaults and traumas. And, we'll get into that so you can understand it further. But most of us did not seek or get training, or the church didn't offer, and our families didn't offer emotional balance so that our mind, our body, and our soul are in agreement with each other and intact, because we have to have them intact to be capable of committing your heart into the safekeeping of another. Relationships, especially between men and women, are inherently hard to sustain. They require every part of you, mind and body and soul. And it needs to be intact and capable of committing your heart into the safekeeping of another. So what happened if you didn't do this and now you're married? What happens if you're single and you're dating and you think you've met the prospect? What happens if you're engaged and you know that your mind, body, and soul is not together? Okay, we're going to talk about that while I drive. Let me finish reading this paragraph to you. I got you, Monique Ruffin. It's called Sex and the Soul. And I'm going to be doing this broadcast throughout December with us, November, to get us to a place of thinking how deep sex actually involves the soul. And if your soul isn't right, your sexual appetite isn't right, your sexual desire isn't right, sex in your marriage is difficult. Now, I got some brothers on here. God bless you. Please stay with us, because you need to talk about this to your sister friends. You need to talk about this to the women in your family. If you're leaders anywhere, you need to talk to the young women about this, because every time we engage in a soul sexual experience, a piece of us is lost in that place. And we have to learn, as a woman, as a young woman or a woman, you have to learn to detach yourself from the person that you're becoming one with, no matter how many times you become one in your lifetime. Think about it. You're supposed to become one, and some of us have become one 99 times, because we're in a sexual revolution, and we're into such a sexual revolution that it's not how many opposite sex members we have sex with, it's how many partners we have sex with, period, whether it's in the mind or done through the physical body. Sex and the soul, you cannot separate the sex from the soul. Every time you have sex, there's a part of your soul that has engaged in that opportunity. And it may be a one-night stand, but guess what? To your soul, that man or that experience has made an imprint on your soul. They've marked it, they remembered it, and there's parts of your body that now is looking for that individual by the medical science of the DNA that was exchanged. Your body now has a sense of that person. Oh my God, it's going to be so deep. Let me finish this so that I can drive. You have to have your mind, body, and soul intact, because relationship, especially that between a man and a woman, require all of it, and they require it intact and capable of committing your heart into the safekeeping or another. This is going to be my ending statement every night. So I invite you to explore the world of your sexuality in ways that perhaps you never have, to consider the power and beauty God pours out on you as a woman. Your sexual experience with men may be pure as a driven snow, or you may have known enough shame and heartache to fill a book. The good news is that beneath the ashes of our past lies a golden core, the intrinsic, transcendent reality of being created in the very image of God as a woman. If we listen to the longings of the heart God gave us, we will find our way back home. Our way back home where? Where would our way back home be? Some of us, we can't go back to sexual purity. Even if we start abstaining now, we can't go back to a sexual purity. We can wash what's been done, but what would be our way back home? Our way back home would be to put in place sex in the order that God had intended. I was speaking with a young lady that I was counseling about a month or so ago, and she said to me, as she cried on my office couch, she said, "Apostle, how come no one ever told me? I have 2 children. I'm pregnant with my 3rd, 3 different fathers. One of the children's father is interested in remaining in their lives, which will include me. But all the other fathers are gone. The baby that I'm carrying now, the man is already gone. This child's father, my hope for relationship, is already gone, and I'm only 4 months pregnant." And she's weeping on my couch, and she says, "Apostle, how come no one ever told me that my sexual purity was important? How come no one ever told me my family?" She says, "I can't even blame my mother. My mother worked with what she had. She came from a family with incest and molestation. And my mother was an addict to cover the pain of the trauma she had in her life. So a part of her has excused the responsibility of her mother, which isn't healthy either, because your mind will have excused mama, but your heart hasn't. And I know we think everything in our heart and our mind are in agreement, but it is not so." But she wept, and I did everything that I could to not weep with her, because I was sexually promiscuous. And I often wondered why there wasn't a generation before me anywhere in the school system, in the family line, my sisters who had learned earlier before me. my mother. There wasn't a woman or a man that could tell me through their experience to guard my virginity, that my sexual purity was very important to my future, to my life. You know, we got HPV now, and not only do we have HPV, we have it on commercials. It's like advertising for Tylenol. It's like advertising for a new app that's out. Hey mom, did you know? Dad, did you know that if you would have got me my HPV shot, I wouldn't have cancer as an adult? You know, we're going to talk about that because we don't even realize that there are some sexually transmitted diseases, sexually transmitted bacteria that will cling to a woman's cervix and hibernate in her cervix tissue for years. And later out, it will come out as cervix cancer. Cervical cancer is the proper medical term, I believe. Cervical cancer. They're finding out that abortion may have a lot to do with breast cancer. They have completely determined that birth control pills has, oh, bless you, Dale. They have completely determined that birth control pills seems to be a very high, seem to be very high for women who later on end up with breast cancer. You know, we are using all of these things, the HPV shot, birth control, the morning after pill, because no one ever taught us early on that sex is powerful. It's devastating. You know, no one's jumping off of a bridge. No one's committing suicide or murdering a loved one because their pet died, or because grandma died, or because mom or dad died. No one's doing that. People are killing themselves, taking out baby mamas, harassing baby fathers, you know, jumping off bridge over love. And we want to wait for people to continually have this experience on their own once they're heartbroken to figure out, I was too young for what was given to me. I started having sex at, well, for me personally, what was I? Let's see, I was pregnant by 16. My son was born when I was 17. So I started having sex at 14 or 15. Do you know the power of sex given to someone who's 14 years old to wield it as they may? Because no one took the time to say your virginity is important, your purity is important. Every time you engage in a sexual experience, whether it's with your fingers or with another person, you are engaging parts of your soul that no one has even taught you about. Do you understand the power that we're given to teenagers? Do you understand that a lot of women who are struggling with cervical cancer now could have gotten it through sexual encounters, but also could have gotten it years ago? But we're continuing in a generation where we're just allowing people to explore their sexuality on their own. Why do we do this? I gotta put in a little addendum in here because I can't get this out of my head. Last night I was watching a movie, and while I was picking movies, I saw that there is a movie on demand, I think it was Hulu actually, that's out, is Why America Allows Circumcision. There are a group of Americans, because we are sick. I mean, I gotta love America because God put me here. So I know my love for America, my love for my community has to be intact because he put me here and he needs me to pray for this place. But as Americans, we have gotten so blessed and so spoiled that we have become sick in our own life. We are causing detriment to ourselves. There are a group of Americans that are now questioning and want to take it to a high Supreme Court as to why Americans have bought into a Jewish tradition of circumcision. They're saying that the child doesn't have a choice. So the male-born child, of course the male, because he's the one that can only have circumcision physically, should wait till he's older to make the decision whether he should be circumcised or not. I mean, when you actually see the procedure for circumcision, I don't think anyone in their right mind would pick it at an older age. But it has been determined that it's for health reasons, cleanliness. I don't know about the women on here. Y'all know I'm going to stay transparent. But whenever I've engaged with a sexual opportunity with someone who wasn't circumcised, my body didn't relate well with it. Not just was there burning, was there bacteria left that I had problem urinating, yeast infection that comes from it. Now, I'm not saying all men or all experienced. I'm just telling you mine. That's all I can speak from. It's my place of truth and experience. America was supposed to have been born or birthed on Christian values and Christian principles. Now we've got Americans asking, how did we adopt Jewish principles? Well, if we were born on, as they say, Christian values and principles, the Christian cannot separate their values and principles from the Jew, because that's where we get our book from, the Torah. The Torah is where we get the New Testament from. So now we've got a group of people who want to make all these changes out of humanistic views. I just think it's crazy that we allow so many things to go on. And I've got a medical practitioner on here saying yes, that we allow people who aren't even medical professionals, and mainly it looked like it was even women, making statements about what a child has a right to do, and basically taking the rights from the parents and saying that this male child should wait till he's older so he can make his own decision whether he wants to be circumcised. Now, we can come to that conclusion, but who makes a decision that tells a child or allows a child or gives permission for a child to yield with such power their sexuality without any teaching, without any constraint, without any fear, without any understanding? We have the school system teaching our children about sex. Do you know who told me as a young woman? Now, this was probably in the early 80s, maybe the 80s or late 70s. You know who told me about menstruals? A friend on the way home from school. When I got in the house, I couldn't wait to cry, because I was petrified to find out that every month from 3 to 5 days, I could possibly be bleeding. I was petrified when I heard it. Terrified me as a young woman. My mother didn't tell me. My sister didn't tell me. I had to find out from a stranger. Why do we leave such important issues to strangers to teach our children, and then have a fit when my generation introduced to the earth teenage pregnancies? Why are we shocked by the results of the behaviors we've allowed to happen? No one told me to guard my virginity. No one told me that being a virgin was special. Not even unto God, just special unto the man that I would want to give my body to when I was mature enough to understand the importance of sexual relating. Unbelievable. And then we find out today through counseling a lot of the problems that I've come into as a soul practitioner. Most of the issues we have in life resolve out of the soul, and it came from early developments and patterns and immature experiences that we've developed and made whole life choices out of. So a lot of people have married people that they probably wouldn't marry if they were whole when they made a decision. Often, this is what sits on the couch in my office. Good men, good women that people do not know how to relate to, that their partner does not even know how to relate to or appreciate, because they've been so contaminated by the wrong thing, the thing that has unloved them, the thing that has abused them, that when the good thing comes to them, they don't know how to appreciate it. I know women that call good men punks. They call good men slow, as compared to what? I sit on the couch and I'm ministering to you and counseling you on the issues of your pain and your hurt, and you get a man who's loving and patient and kind and long-suffering and gentle and meek with you, and you call him a punk and you call him slow? You know why? Because what you have adapted yourself to, that you hate in your heart, but you believe in your mind, that's the only thing that's out there. You make choices in a sick state that you would have never made in a healthy state. So now we've got bad marriages. The church is looking just as broken as the world. And then we have another generation coming up, and no one is telling them that sexual purity is real. Sexual purity is possible in 2018. That your virginity is something sacred. It's a gift from God. And the gift should not be opened often with multiple partners throughout your life before you find the right one. My heart breaks for this young woman that sat on my couch, pregnant, 4 months pregnant, 2 children already born, 3rd baby father, and only one in sight to help, to stay on after the disaster. Because it's not a joy when a child is being born in this, from probably both individuals. It's a disaster. It becomes another job. Devastated. And all she wanted to know was, how come no one ever told me that sexual purity was important, and then that sexual purity was possible. And she cried so hard. I see my son on here. God bless you, baby. She cried so hard that she slid off of my couch, onto her knees in a kneeling position on the couch, crying with this baby in her belly. Why didn't anyone teach me that sexual purity is not only possible, but it is extremely important? Sex and the soul are one. You cannot separate the two. Every time a man and a woman engages in a sexual encounter and a sexual experience, there is not only just an exchange of DNA, but there is an exchange in their soul. And we have got to begin to be bolder and take back God's gift to woman and man. Take back God's gift to woman and man of sexuality, and stop letting the school system tell us. Stop letting the school system go back in history. And you know, my niece was telling me, she was showing me pictures of her class, her sexual ed class, how they had going back, showing them dildos from the old days that were made out of wood and were made out of metal, and how far the sexual revelation has come, that now they have dolls, female dolls with what do I want to say, prosthetic type organs that men are able to purchase in the mail, have them delivered to their home, and these dolls are able to sit up next to them, have a limited conversation with them, limited, because it doesn't involve her brain, okay? And he engages with this doll sexually, penetrating orally, anally, vaginally. And this is being taught to our children before we get a chance to teach them about abstinence, about purity, about their virginity. Something is wrong when we are trusting the public school system to teach our children that sex with anybody is okay, that keep trying until you get it right. Multiple partners is the way to go. You know, I'm going to tell you, when I was experiencing my sexual revolution, if you will, I was in a rush to get rid of my virginity. Can I ask how many others would be honest with that? I was in a rush to get over my virginity because there was so much pressure amongst my peers that all of them were having sex. All of them had boyfriends. They were so much more liked than me. They were so much more chosen than me. They were so much more popular than me. They were so much more outgoing and fancier than me. They were in higher demand than me. And it made me think, thank you, Jeremy, and it made me feel, not just think, it made me buy into the thought, because of my feelings, that I wasn't worth being popular, I wasn't important, I wasn't liked, that I needed to look like them, be like them, act like them, when really, all of that was just because those girls were opening up their legs to all these boys, that they weren't really popular because of their brain. Them boys didn't ask their grades, their boys didn't meet their parents, they didn't find out if this woman is somebody that I want to even engage in. I rushed to get rid of my virginity because I wasn't popular, because I wasn't asked to go to dances. I didn't have young boys sitting on my porch. You know, they weren't walking me home from school. They weren't carrying my books. I didn't know that they were doing all of that. And I'm not picking on the young guy. I understand the power of sex. And that's why I want to deal with it, because a lot of men to this day are being manipulated by women through sex, because a woman doesn't know her worth, so she uses her body to gain control of a man instead of sharing it and embracing it with the partner that she chooses to be with. So our soul is all over the place. Our mind is all over the place. Our body is left all over the place. You can do what you got to do. You're not going to distract me. Come on, Katrina. You're fine. And So now we got people who are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old even, who are jacked up because we never was told that our sexuality was, I don't even know the word I want to put on it today. I'll have it when we start the broadcast. Our sexuality is as important as our career, our family values, our moral principles. Our sexuality is astronomical. But we cannot wait for another generation to learn that. Our churches got to start sexual purity classes. Our churches got to start teaching women that so what if you've already engaged in sex? There's still a reason why you can abstain for sex. There's an importance to why you can stop having sex. You don't have to attract a guy or keep a guy or get caught up, thank you Jeremy, and end up with sexual soul ties because no one ever told you that without sex you're still valuable. Without opening your legs, you are still have something valuable and important to offer someone. Without losing your mind. Oh my God. I counseled someone the other day. They married a woman and she had a promiscuous lifestyle before. She got into, I believe, some prostitution because she engaged in stripping. And she engaged in stripping because TV showed her that the way to afford your education is to earn some money. And the only way you can work at night to be up for your education during the day is to strip. You make quick money. There's no attachments, which led her down a whole nother road that she found out was a whole lot of attachments to it. I have a family member that's a stripper, and she told me that, you know, she wasn't engaging in sexual promiscuity with the guys, but a couple years later, she called me and she said, Auntie, these girls are doing so much more now to get money that the guys are giving dollars to see the beauty of a woman's nakedness. Dollars. And I don't mean like dollars, like $5, $1,000. I mean singles, ones, to see the beauty of a woman's body. And if she really wanted to make some real money, that she had to go further. And I'm not talking about in the back champagne room. She had to become like his date. Whenever he wanted to go somewhere, she would be the date that he would exploit. She would be involved with him and some of his boys sexually. That's where they were making the real money. And she said to me, I'm going to become a shot girl. I'm going to deliver the shots now because the bartenders are making more money than the strippers because they value the woman who brings their alcohol more than the woman who's taking her clothes off. So this person ended up in a deep drain of promiscuous lifestyle that she never knew. Grew up in her 50s now, married. She cannot have normal sex with her husband. What I mean by normal sex, she has to put her mind into another place that he didn't even know she went through. 10 years they've been married. He had no clue that in her mind, she had to go back into some of those other positions with men that she was in order to have a ordained orgasm. Okay, let's call one of these broadcasts an ordained orgasm. In order to have an ordained orgasm with her husband, she had to go back into a sick mentality because his love for her, she could not accept. His passion for her, she could not accept. His long suffering, his meekness, his gentleness, his pure feelings for her, she could not embrace it. Why? Because when you think in your mind that you detach sex from the soul, as a woman, you find out later on that is virtually, scientifically, medically, and spiritually impossible to do. So now she's in her 50s, did these things throughout her 20s, and she's unattached from her husband. So she has been unhappily married for the rest of her life. Because I know he loves me, I just don't feel him. I don't feel the connection. He seems like he's corny to me, you know, because she's already accepted the pattern of that other guy. So when you try to separate sex from the soul, what happens to us, we have what's called detachment process, where a woman actually separates, she has like an out-of-body experience. She separates her sexual experience with her husband and translates out of her body into another place in order to enjoy the purity of ordained sex that God had given to married couples. I'm glad somebody's saying they feel that. It's so deep. And it's proven over and over and over again medically that there is more damage done from early sex and lack of childhood education on sex later in life than it is early in life. So it's time for us to be honest with our boys. I see some of my brothers on here, some of my sons on here, It is very important to begin to teach your sons now to value young women. How they see you deal with their mom, whether the mom is in the house or not. They should see you honor her. I don't care if she's jacked up, if she's, by Felicia from the projects. You handle her in a way that your child will always see you honoring a woman. Because when you don't, you are setting him up to believe that the shot girl is worth more than the girl that's showing her God-given beauty across the stage. I hope I'm making sense today. I know I might be grabbing many apples from this apple tree because this thing is so alive in my soul that there are so many couples in Christendom that are not having the sex that God intended for Christians and for married Christians, especially because we are jacked up from early sex that we were not educated for, we were too immature for. So now we get with someone and we've got to have all these other thoughts in our head in order to have an ordained orgasm. I like that one. I'm going to stick with that one. As women, we are designed for deep and lasting attachment. As someone's daughter, come on, I'm talking to you, daughters. Somebody's mother, aunt, sister, friend, or wife. No matter what we achieve or accomplish, our lives are empty without relationships of duration and depth. And the longer you have been in that relationship, the longer it's going to take you to get out of it. And I'm not telling you to leave anyone. What I'm telling you to do is get some help. Because if you are in a relationship, it's not just going to take commitment of your loyalty. It's going to take mind, body, and soul. And the church for years has ignored the soul. And I don't know why, because after in the beginning was the Word and Word was with God, God breathed the breath of life into man, and then he became a living soul. The first breath God breathed was into man, and that breath caused him to be a living soul. The soul came before the Holy Spirit in a person's dwelling. But we're so convinced and so adamant on teaching on the Holy Spirit, which is very important, of course, but the soul has to be a part of the Holy Spirit, and we've detached them, and we wonder why we've detached them in sex. We wonder why we've detached them in relationships, and we wonder why we have a generation coming up on a commercial saying, did you know, Mom? Did you know, Dad? If you had given me the HPV shot early on, I wouldn't have cancer today. My answer is, why are you even having sex today that you have to get an HPV shot today? And I can't even get upset with the children because no one taught me. And I was born in 1967, and now it's 2018, and we still aren't teaching a generation coming up. I see people booking appointments online. God bless you. But pastors and leaders, parents, teachers, we have got to begin to teach our sons and daughters the gift that God gave us in our sexuality. That's why I believe we're reverting to so many other ways to have sex and not even finding this true intimate sex in our opposite sex, because we have bitten so many apples from the apple tree that our taste is gone, that we can't even have pure intimacy and enjoyed fulfilled intimacy with the opposite sex, that we're tossing the opposite sex by and saying, well, let me try same sex. Well, let me try multiple sex partners. Well, let me try all different areas. Well, let me try multiple partners at one time. Well, let me just give all that up and just have a life of masturbation. And let me just start ordering these dowels in the mail. And we're just crazy. Crazy. It's gone crazy. A sexual revolution isn't even a proper term anymore. Somebody inboxed me what's a better term than a sexual revolution, because that was in the 60s. We've taken it to a new height in 2018. So I'm going to be talking to us about sex and the soul, in particular sex and the soul of a woman, because that's the book that I'm going to be retelling. However, this is not just for women, because men, I need you to buy into this. Y'all know more about it than us. I've had more men in my lifetime tell me I was special and I was important and that I shouldn't be giving my body to certain people. I've had guys come to me when they saw me getting ready to date certain men, tell me, don't date him. You a good girl. He's too fast for you. He's going to open you up to a life that you're not ready for. I had guys come and tell me more than I ever had a woman come and tell me. Get your young girls. Get a group of young girls at your house and watch these broadcasts together. Get live with them. Get your nieces, your daughters, your neighbors, your friends, young girls in your church, young girls in your community. Start a girls group and just meet once a week and get on these broadcasts with them. Let's change the sexual revolution. Let's put sex back to the soul, and the soul back into the place where it belongs. God restores the beauty of relationships from the pain of regret. Start them out young. I'm going to end like I said I was going to end. Here's my ending statement. And I hope you enjoyed this. We're going to be back on again. Please tag, please share, please inbox people. Get this out there, because I believe this is such an important message. We are still in 2018 not dealing with the soul in the church, not dealing with sex in the church, and not teaching young people the power of their sexuality, and to not lose it, not casting pearls before swine. We have been misled in the millennial culture revolution of sex is astronomical. So let me do this. Now that you've gotten a little trailer on what we're going to be talking about, and I see men responding heavily on here. God bless each of you. I bless you all, Andre and Jeremy. I bless you. I see the names going up, but I bless you because this is so important. Girls tend to hear more from men than they do women. And girls without fathers need to hear from you. You are fathers if you never father a children on your own. You've been anointed with that. Hello, Apostle Diane. I think I'm going to be seeing you, right, in February in Sumter, South Carolina. So here's the ending to my broadcast that I want you to share with your friends. I invite you to explore the world of your sexuality in ways that perhaps you never have, to consider the power and beauty God pours out on you as women. Your sexual experience with men may be as pure as the driven snow, or you may have known enough shame and heartache to fill a book. The good news is that beneath the ashes of our past lies a golden core, the intrinsic, transcendent reality of being created in the very image of God as a woman. If we listen to the longings of the heart God gave us, not the heart that you have now, because it's been traumatized, used, abused, lied to. You've met so many non-promise keepers. But if you can get back to the place of listening to the longings of the heart God gave you, you can find your way home. So I invite you on a sexual journey with me as we talk about sex and how it relates to the soul. And some question for discussion that we'll bring up next time. What would more romance in your current relationship look like from your perspective? Because in most cases, there's no romance in relationships because we weren't taught romance when we were taught about sex. We weren't taught romance when we started having sex. We weren't romanced by our dad in an innocent way, that when we get a relationship, all we know is sex. So I invite you on this journey to explore the world of sexuality with me. God bless you. Please share with some young women. We need the young girls on here. I'm going to talk truth with them. I'm raw. I'm not always diplomatically correct the way people would like it. But if you want the truth, you'll get it from me. If you want it without flowers and roses and covered up perfume, I'm not good with covering feces up with perfume. I'm not good with putting flowers on dead things. I'm going to dig up the dead things so that we can bring life back to it again. And if you're someone that you don't need it always soft and you don't always need it covered up, or you don't need to take a year to get to the truth, then you'll have no problem with me. If you are someone, maybe you're too hurt, too rejected, too broken, that you can't take the straight up, straightforward ministry, watch the videos. Then you ain't got to worry about feeling any type of way when the truth is coming out of me. Because the truth hurts. It stings. It stings me. So I can imagine how it stings others. But I love you. I pray for you. I thank you for being on today. I trust that you're going to share this, that we need this to hit so many young people, so many millennials, and so many people who are in marriages that are considering giving up because it's become so frayed from what we've patterned love, romance, and sex to be after, and not the way God intended it. So I wish above all things that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. Thank you so much for #replay. Watch the replay. I love you, and God bless you.